Hi, so welcome back to the Motor Asha podcast. On this podcast, we talk about brake pads, compounds, sintered, fully sintered. I know there's a lot of us who keep thinking which one should I be putting and for what use. So there is a specific reason why you should be putting fully sintered or semi-sintered or organic brake pads. We break it down for you. Zain from Zain Engine has been kind enough to give us his inputs and through his experience over the years of track as well as being at the garage, running that garage, he's sharing that knowledge with us. So, welcome back, Zen, and yeah, let's hear it.
Hello everyone, this is Zain from the zenngine and welcome back to another MotorShare podcast. This is going to be a quick one which is going to help you guys choose the right brake pads for your motorcycle. We'll be talking about two main categories of brake pads, sintered versus organic brake pads. So let's get into it. Sintering is the fusing of metallic particles under heat and pressure to create a compound that is very resistant to high coefficients of friction. Organic brake pads, on the other hand, are a mix of fibers and fillers that are bound together with a resin. With the base construction of both brake pads understood, let's look at the pros and cons of each. Now, a sintered brake pad is pretty much a pure metal construction, which makes it highly resistant to high temperatures, which means that these brake pads will provide a stable coefficient of friction over a wide heat range. They will also be very resistant to very high temperatures. So if you have a performance motorcycle with performance braking system and you tend to put a lot of braking pressure in your braking system, which develops a lot of heat, sintered brake pads will be able to still provide you a lot of coefficient of friction and not fade away. Unfortunately, the metal construction also has some downsides. Due to direct metal to metal contact, they do tend to produce more noise than the organic counterparts, and because of expensive materials and more expensive manufacturing process, these pads will generally cost you more. Let's look at the organic brake pads for now. A softer compound of the organic brake pads will provide you a better feel and feedback on the lever. It also produces almost negligible amount of wear on your rotors. Unfortunately, that's where the pros stop. The softer compounds of the organic brake pads will deteriorate really fast once the temperature starts to rise. So as the temperature starts to build, the coefficient of friction will drop drastically and so will the life of the brake pad. Beyond a certain temperature, the organic brake pads will not be able to provide you any coefficient of friction whatsoever. These pads are also very sensitive to dust, dirt, grime, and whatever your caliper can see on the road. Even in the monsoon, because of all of the water that goes into the brake pads, the resin can absorb that amount of water and reduce its coefficient of friction. Because of these reasons, the organic compound is not very versatile, which is why most manufacturers are moving towards sintered brake pads as their OEM choice in spite of the additional cost. However, we as riders can choose a brake pad that is suitable to our need and our riding conditions. So, if you are an aggressive rider who puts a lot of temperature into your braking system and has a high performance braking system on their motorcycle, sintered pad is a must for you. However, if you are someone who rarely goes out to the highway, rarely goes on to triple digit speeds, and usually rides in the city without really using a lot of the brakes, then an organic brake pad might work really well for you and will also save you some money. However, if you are not sure as to, I don't want to spend this amount of money on a sintered brake pad, but I don't want to really compromise my braking too much with an organic brake pad, you can choose something which is called a semi-sintered brake pad, which means that it is a base of resin and fibers and fillers, but it has some metallic particles in it to give you a little bit of heat resistance, a stable coefficient of friction, while keeping the costs low. So that is also something that you can look at. If you are switching from an organic brake pad to a sintered or a semi-sintered brake pad, just make sure that the discs on your motorcycle are compatible with sintered brake pads. Otherwise, the sintered brake pads will eat up your rotors really fast, which is where the myth of every sintered brake pad is going to eat my rotors way faster comes from. However, it's a case to case basis. Of course, if your motorcycle has discs which are designed for organic brake pad, they will not be able to handle the wear that sintered brake pads put on them. But with modern manufacturers switching to sintered brake pads as their OEM choice, almost all modern motorcycles are coming with rotors which are compatible with sintered brake pads anyways. So most of us don't need to worry about it. But if you're switching from organic to sintered, I would just check if that is true. In the sintered category now, there are multiple brake pads which are geared towards different areas of riding, which are high performance brake pads, low cost brake pads, track day pads, and there are a variety of them. But that's another podcast for another day. This podcast has been to help you choose between sintered or organic, whichever one you choose. You can ask your local expert to help you guide with what brake pad you should go for. But that's been it from me. Hope this helps you choose the right brake pad for your motorcycle. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you guys soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. I want to hear your stories, your motorcycle experiences, what you've been doing, and how motorcycles have made your life better. So if you have something to say, DM us on Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to get you on this podcast.